friends, my name is Lindsay. I run the blog Books for Christian Girls, and welcome back to the little corner of the internet where I talk mainly about Christian fiction. Today is my April recent reads, my April wrap-up, whatever you want to call it. We are discussing all the books I read in April, which was 22 books, and overall I think that's pretty good. I did have like 4 audiobooks, partial audiobooks throughout the month, and then I read 10 off of Kindle Unlimited, 6 off of my priority list, and another 6 off of my physical TBR. So pretty good overall. I'm pretty satisfied by that. I have a couple 4.5s. I also, though, unfortunately have my very first 1-star of the year. So that was a bummer. But let's get started with Christian fiction. Before we actually get started, though, I want to try something new for this video. So as some of y'all may be aware, I do monetize these videos with YouTube. I do not control the ads. That's an algorithm thing, like just as a note, I don't have that power. But I do make money when I do these videos and y'all watch them. So thank you for supporting my channel in that way. They recently changed a couple things though that makes it a little more difficult to put ads where I want to put them. So we're going to do maybe every 12 to 15 minutes a little ad break. And that's either going to be like a little fun quiz, a quote, a meme, some flower pictures if I just got like all ranty about a book, something like that. We're just going to have like a little 15-second ad break so I can put the ad there. YouTube's gotten a little more particular on wanting just a like no talking, no movement place to put an ad. And I talk and move a lot, so that's really hard for me. So we're going to try that and see how it goes. Y'all give me your feedback. It can be just like a 15-second little break, I think, is what we're going to attempt to do. If you have YouTube Premium, you won't get an ad because you have YouTube Premium. But if you do not, then you will probably see an ad pop up somewhere within that 15 seconds. Hopefully, if this plan works. I've been trying to think about it for the last month or so because that's about the time they've implemented it. And in my last few videos, I've had to put ads when I'm in the middle of talking about a book, and I don't like doing that. I want to do it at the end of a book or the beginning of the book, like in between 2 books. I don't want an ad to happen when I'm talking about a book in the middle of it. So we're going to see if this works out. So maybe every like 12 to 15 minutes roughly, there will be an ad from YouTube, but we'll also have like a fun little ad break for this video that I've added in. So we'll see how it goes. Let me know y'all's thoughts. Let's get started. So with Christian fiction, as always, I will start with the maybe lowest ranking to the highest ranking, and I will have full content reviews to all of these books down below. But our first one to discuss today is On the Right Track by Shaen Layle. I'm not sure how to pronounce the author's name. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. It's definitely now my least favorite of the Mysteries of the Cobble Hill Farm series. Not the Mysteries of Cobble Hill Farm series. This is book 8. I didn't really care for this one for a lot of different reasons, but mainly because of the writing style and we did not go well together. And Harriet felt very different in this book, and that is a case with sometimes these guidepost mystery series is because there's so many different authors writing them. Sometimes the main character seems a little different. So in this book, we also follow Harriet because she is the main character of the series and all the books are about her. But in this one, we meet a lot of new characters right off the bat, and then also right off the bat, the mystery appears. So basically, an unpublished manuscript comes to play and it's found in her aunt's cottage, and then it says the book claims to tell the truth behind an infamous and mysterious railway crash, that is such a tongue twister for me, that happened in Whitechurch Bay, their area, in 1917 on the fringes of the Great War. And I just honestly did not care about that train crash plotline, and that's me. That's just me. Maybe you'll find it interesting. I did not find it interesting. And I just had the whole of like, why should I care? Like, I'm sorry, that sounds terrible. But Harriet was like very determined to prove that her family couldn't have done anything like that. And this is like her great uncle or something. And see that also, I'm like, why do you think that, And that was also the thing with this book for me, is I really didn't understand why Harriet was very stuck on the fact that her family could not have had a criminal ever, because I think we probably all have in our history ancestral lineup, whether we know it or not. And so like that felt a little weird to me. Harriet just felt off in this book. So that was really, really unfortunate that I didn't care for this one much. I gave it 3 stars. I liked it well enough, but I had to kind of push myself to read this one because the writing style was very jumpy and just not my cup of tea, and then the mystery just wasn't pulling me in. Now, Do I suggest you read this book if you've read the rest of the series? Yes, if only for the last 2 chapters in it. There are finally developments for Harriet and Will, and I've been waiting for that because I think they're going to be very cute together. I just didn't really care for the rest of this book, which is unfortunate. Really, it was unfortunate. So this next book I am struggling to talk about in like a coherent, concisive way. And so I'm just going to suggest if I am not being clear, check out my review because I wrote a lot of thoughts on this book. So we have Protector by Megan Schaulis. Schaulis? I'm not sure how to pronounce the author's last name. This is Christian YA dystopian inspired by Esther. And so you definitely get that Esther inspiration because our main girl is Nova and she is a part of the outcasted religious group that like the government calls like traitors and treason and all that kind of thing. And so you have that element with Esther, but then she gets the chance, we're not going to say opportunity because of spoilers, so she gets the chance of becoming a possible guard to the new young handsome king. And she is not, though, like the other ones, the other women that are training to be his bodyguard. They are all enhanced with like special tech and all that, and she is not, but she is trying to not be caught to not have that tech because, you know, you've got like the whole like implants and like there's a lot of tattoos because they cover the scarring from like the surgeries for getting like the new tech implanted. They have to cover those up with tattoos, so like she's always wearing long sleeves so nobody figures it out kind of thing. And it was interesting. It was really brutal, though, for my taste. It was a little more edgier and gritty than, or maybe would be the words, than I prefer. So if you know you have a higher threshold than me on that, then you probably would be fine with it. But it's pretty brutal. All the fighting and all the injuries and deaths that she sees. It's pretty brutal in my opinion. Now maybe it's not that bad compared to secular dystopian books. I've never read like The Hunger Games, so I don't know comparable wise to that. There was, though, also some sexual comments / suggestions that made me drop my ratings and make me think that this book would be best, if only for like older teens, like 16, 17 plus, who have read a lot of dystopian books. Because with the sexual content suggestions, some of them made sense for the plotline, but other ones I was just like, that's a little much for my personal taste. And they really mainly had to do with the one night with the king element. And so there is that. I didn't love those parts, and I didn't like the suggestions. And I think also it just kind of pulled down to the fact that I really didn't like the main guy, Zayden. We're going to go with that. Zayden. He is now the king, and he's very much like, I'm not going to be manipulated again, but doesn't realize, oh, bud, you're being manipulated again. Like, we can notice some manipulation, but not all manipulation, apparently. He kind of was an unstable jerk, though, at times because of past events, and he didn't really endear himself to me at all. So, I don't know, there was that. But I think the main thing that I feel kind of uncomfortable with this book would be that the main girl, Nova, has what's called the alpha talking to her in her brain, and she's just able to talk back to it. And that's supposed to be God and the religious authority of her faith, if you will. And it hadn't been all scriptural based of like what the voice in her head was telling her, I think I would have been totally fine with it. But they're talking about like science and boys and that kind of thing, and I was like, that feels a little weird to me personally in a way. Some will be totally fine with it, but I was personally like, that's a little strange for my taste. And so at one point, like, she thinks that voice is like just inside her head, it's an imaginary friend, she's losing it kind of thing. And the voice is very much like, I am not. So it was interesting. It was interesting. I probably will still pick up the second book. It does end on a cliffhanger. I'll pick up the second book at some point just to like see how this all goes. But I don't know. I have mixed feelings on it, which is unfortunate. Because I had really high hopes for it. But yeah, it was a little much in certain places for my taste. It was different. it was different. So my next book would be Illuminary by, I'm not going to pronounce the author's name because you know I'm not going to get it right. We all know that. I'm so sorry. I gave this one about 3 stars. This is published by Enclave, and as far as Enclave published books, I have to say I think this one maybe had the most Christianity nods in it, because you never know with Enclave. Are they going to be like allegorical, or are they going to have just be clean, that kind of thing? And so I would say this one was more on the allegorical sense. Not everything had a direct correlation to like the Bible, but it did have some nods in different ways. So our main girl is Yoshi, and yes, every time I saw her name, my brain went Yoshi from Mario Brothers, obviously. And so she wants to be what's called an illuminator, I think was it? And so basically she has the ability that if she like touches a writing, she is able to see what the writer of that paper, book, newspaper, whatever, has thought of when they were writing that. So she sees like these visions, flashes, spells, they call them different things. And so nobody really though believes that's still a gift that's given from the sustainer, aka God. And so she keeps that very quiet and it's a secret. She ends up getting involved with, what was his name? Prince. He's a prince. Xander. Xander is a prince, but he is now suddenly a king. And so with Xander though, he was never expected to be the king because he's the illegitimate child of the king, of the late king. And so he has now been thrusted into that role of being the crown prince, going to become the king, but he kind of has a lot of assassins after him, you know, as a kingly figure does, I suppose. And so he runs off, not really runs off, he kind of gets permission, and he runs off to another country, and that is where he meets our main girl Yoshi. And they get involved in a competition for the big religious festival of her country. At first I was pretty confused with this book, and it took me a while to get into it because the writing style was very different, and I'm not sure if it was the author just trying to highlight the different cultural things and like this fantasy setting, because you've got like things that were definitely like Indian origin and then maybe some Jewish elements as well. It was very different. It was very different. I probably would maybe read the next book in the series, but it sounds like it's going to be a trilogy, so I don't know. One big note I'd like to say that if you're going to read this book, there's a glossary at the back of the book. That would have been so helpful to know, because the first half of this book, I'm like, I am trying to figure things out. I assume I can figure out what most of the stuff is. I don't understand, though, what's really happening. And then I looked in my little Kindle copy, and I was like, you know, how many pages is this thing? And then I see glossary at the back. That would have been so helpful. That would have been so helpful. So once I had that, and I was already figuring out some things, my head hurt less as I read this book. Because yeah, there's a glossary. Don't be like me. Read the glossary. Have the glossary nearby and handy because you will need it. Because there's so many like different words and terms used. And then you also just have like just all the different fantasy elements and just trying to explain it all. So it was, yeah. I think I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more had I known there was a glossary and had that glossary for the first half of the book. But at the same time, it's not really easy to flip back and forth like that when you're reading on the Kindle. So there is that. I think I only have 2 more notes. I'm trying to talk about these books quicker. Wish me luck. But the chapters in this book were really long. So like just as a heads up, there are chapter breaks. But like the chapters are anywhere from like 40 to 90 pages. I don't usually notice that kind of thing, but I was like, when is the chapter ending? And it's only like 7 chapters and it's like 400 pages. So that was different. Wasn't quite sure how I feel about that, but it worked. I guess there was chapter breaks. One thing I did really like though is both main characters have a faith. This is constantly something I am saying I want to see in Christian fiction. And in this fantasy setting, it's a little different, but I will take it. I will take it because she has a faith and talks about it, and then he is having to more so hide his faith because in his home country, people don't really believe in the sustainer. So it was overall not bad. There was some conversations that maybe felt a little like the characters were trying too hard to look wise and smart, but maybe that was just a cultural thing. I don't know. So there was that, but overall not bad. The ending was mean though. I will give you that. The ending was mean. Overall, I think it was interesting, but it just wasn't fully my cup of tea. It was unique. The pacing was decent. You might give it a try if you're interested in it. Just read the glossary. Have the glossary. You will need it. Then we have a middle grade book called Miss Rawlins, and it's by Taylor Paige. This is a Regency historical YA, not really mystery per se. Personally, it was 3 stars, but I think younger readers, like 12 to 14 particularly, would probably really like it. So I bumped it up to a 4 on Goodreads because of that. In this book, our main girl is Elizabeth, and she is 13-14, and her mother has recently passed away, so making ends meet has become even harder for her and her siblings. But then their uncle comes and takes them away, and he's like a lord or baron or something like that. They start living with him, but there are secrets in his manor, and they are trying to figure things out. And just to give you like the series title, it's well, I don't know how to pronounce the first part, so maybe I won't give you that part, but the word spy is in the title. And so you've got little spies, actions happening and becoming spies, and I'm just always excited to see Christian historical YA coming out. So I was excited about that. I was a little confused with all the different characters at times, but it almost reminded me of like the Mandy series or the Elsie Dinsmore series, and I think that's just because Elizabeth was just such a good, curious young girl that just had a pretty good head on her shoulders. So yeah, I really liked her. She was respectful, very polite. The next book in the series I think is about her younger sister, so I look forward to reading that. There is a lot of faith content in this book. Overall, it was pretty good. I have Fraidy Cat Trouble by Katie McCrite. This is book 2 in the Misadventures of April Grace, which the main series was The Confessions of April Grace. And this is just like a short 100 or so pages little story of April Grace when she's younger, and her sister are a mess. And I mean in a sassy, bickering, not that you don't want your kids or yourself to mimic what they are, but they are very sassy to each other. So basically, April Grace is supposed to go to the cellar, and she hates the cellar more than anything because she hates mice. And you know, fair. That's fair. But her sister is kind of a brat. Is a brat. It was fine. I think I liked the first book in this little mini-series better, but it was fine. I gave it 3 stars. Not really something you want your kids to mimic because there's a lot of like sibling fussing between April Grace and Myra Sue, but as an older reader, it's enjoyable, but like it would be one maybe I'd hand with caution to a younger reader. How can I put this? If you're young reader that you are looking for books for, if they are one that mimics things they see in books, you probably ought to pass on this one. But for older readers, it's sassy and fun and pretty enjoyable. So sorry, my camera battery died. We were discussing our next book, and that is Agape, After All, by Katherine Robles. So this is book 3 in the Romance in the Park series, and just as a note, the series is not connecting in any way. They just have the same theme of young adult Christian women meeting handsome Christian young adult men. Oh, young adult, not young adult, new adult. They're in their 20s. That's so hard because like you think young adult with books and that's like a big age range and it's teens, but then in real life, a young adult is usually like, you know, 18 to, I don't know, 25 or something. So that's just, yeah. Anyway, they're new adults in the book category, if you will. And so they meet them, and sometimes sparks fly, sometimes tempers fly, that kind of thing. So our main girl is Vanessa, and she's engaged to Colin, and Colin is meh. We don't like Colin, not really. And so she goes camping with her friends and meets Tony and his friends. And Tony seems to be a pretty good guy. Now, it should be noted, I'm not a camping person, so having like a third of the book be about camping was not a selling point to me. I don't do camping. I did enough camping with American Heritage Girls. I do not miss camping at all. Those who like camping, though, y'all might like this. This whole series has been very outdoorsy because they're all set about romances in the park. And so the park is in like state parks, not park is in like, I'm thinking of a local park name. I'm not going to say that one, but you know, like Central Park or something. So it's not, it's like camping, hiking, waterfalls, that vibe. And so they're not connecting. You can read whichever ones you want. Before I started this book, I was a little concerned because Vanessa is engaged to Colin, and then she meets Tony, so I was afraid there was going to be a cheating element, but thankfully there wasn't. Vanessa never really saw Tony as anything more than just like a platonic friend, so I really, really appreciated that note. For her, it felt more of a platonic friendship, and I thought that was the same case. Now, Colin is, didn't really care for him, but I don't think we really were supposed to, so there's that. I'm not really sure what to say about this book. I gave it 3.5 stars. I liked some elements. I didn't like some elements. I think maybe Vanessa and Colin's relationship wasn't supposed to be like a red flag warning book, if you will, but it wasn't the healthiest either. Let's put it this way, it maybe showed that they weren't the best fit for each other and they just needed to figure that out themselves, kind of thing. So it was very natural for the story. It made sense for how everything worked out. I liked it well enough, 3.5 stars. This has been a very like summery, outdoorsy series, so if you want a fun book like that, you might check it out. Our next book is Road Trip Redemption by Becca Wierwille. I gave this one 4 stars. This is part of the Road Trip Rescue series. So book 1 was Road Trip Rescue, book 2 was Road Trip Return, and now we have Road Trip Redemption. I highly recommend reading them in order though, because they really, even though they follow different main characters, it's very connecting to the prior books, and like you hear about the events in the prior books, so I definitely suggest reading them in order. But this is about Jada. J-A-D-A. I feel like you could pronounce it either way. But she is our main character, and she is 13 years old, and she was actually the best friend of our main girl, Kimmy, in book 1. But certain things happened and didn't go well, and then Jada's family moved, so their friendship is kind of in tatters. And so one day she is out with her sister, and one of her sisters, she has 2 older sisters, and they come across a dog that she thinks looks just like Kimmy from book 1's dog. And so she is convinced this is her dog. She's going to be able to prove her worth and that she's worthy of forgiveness from Kimmy, because she has recently come to the realization that what she did to Kimmy years prior was not good, and that now being on the receiving end of being bullied herself, how terrible it feels. And so she wants this to be like the big grand gesture, so like Kimmy won't hate her anymore. And so she convinces her older sisters to go on a road trip up from Florida to Pennsylvania with the dog to take back to Kimmy. And does that quite work out? Well, you'd have to read the book to find out. But I actually really enjoyed this one and a lot of different elements of it. As a general rule, I don't usually like when books have to do with like bullies or bullying, because we see that so often in Christian YA and Christian middle grade. But how the author handled this, I thought was very well done and very impactful for the lessons that our main character has to learn. The main character goes through the idea throughout this book that she has to be kind and prove that she's a good person. And some of that backfires and it doesn't go as she hopes. So she's got to figure that out, and it's just a really solid middle grade trilogy in my opinion. I do also have to say that this is one of my favorite covers, well, not one of, my favorite cover of the series, and then the back is just so pretty. I was hoping we were going to have a pink spine. Not going to lie, I was hoping it was going to be pink, but it works. It works. But overall, I thought it was really good. The faith content was natural. I think though this series was just a very solid middle grade series, and even like lower YA age, if you will. There's a lot of lessons to be learned that not only those in that target age need to read, but older people's as well. And it was good. I really enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing what this author writes next. And yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. My next book for Christian fiction, let me pull up my notes on it, is one I had on my physical TBR, and I'm excited to have gotten it off, but it is also available on Kindle Unlimited, and that is Salvaged by Shanna M. Heath. This one I actually gave 4 stars. Okay, so we already know I really like contemporary Christian YA. That is a comfort genre for me. There's something about it that is just my genre. Maybe that's because like that's what got me into Christian fiction when I was a early teen, preteen, but that is just like my comfort genre. So I was really excited to learn about this one and just finally read it. I've had my eye on it, But our main girl is Hadley, and she has lived with her grandma for basically her whole life. And her grandma has breast cancer, and it's not going well. And so her grandma kind of drops the bomb on her that she's been in contact with Hadley's birth father, and they are going to go move to his town so she can live with him. And that's a big shock to our main character, to say the least. And there's just like a lot of different things. So not only does she like the new girl in the new town with the family she didn't really know about, because her father is married and has 2 young kids. And so you have all those elements, but also with the new school part, she has to come up with a project as a senior that can be raffled off for like the big town's fair festival thingamajig. And so she has to go to an antique store and work with the people there about all of that. And so, what do I want to discuss first? I have like content notes, I've got faith notes, I've got humor. I laughed a lot with this book, I have to say. My highlights on my Kindle were quite full because I was really enjoying it. I also just have to note, there's chapter titles. I love a good chapter title. It's great. So like that's the general little like summary, if you will, of the book. But this book actually had a lot of faith content, and mainly Hadley trying to understand, realize, and accept that God is still good even when it doesn't feel like it, when life is just not feeling like that could be true. And so she's having to really learn and lean on the fact that God is good even in those moments you don't feel it. And as someone who definitely struggled with that after the passing of a loved one, yes, I could totally relate to a lot of her thoughts on that, and you have to go with what you know over what you feel. And it's hard to say I enjoyed that message, but like, it was relatable in an unfortunate way, I guess you could say. I don't know the best way to put that. But we also have the humor in this book, which really added to my enjoyment because I wasn't expecting there to be as much humor as it was. There was kind of like a more sassy undertone, if you will. But it was very balanced well between the humor and the faith content and like the sadness and the grief within the book. It was all balanced very well, which was a very pleasant surprise. Our main girl has got that awkward teenager feel so much, and I think the author did really great showing that, and like the word vomit, as Hadley says she does. It all worked very well for like that awkward teenager in a new place, life is completely changed kind of setting. It was really nice how like most of the people around her were good people. That was really nice. So with this book, the romance element though, I think some are going to be very like not a fan of it, and some are going to be like, that's not that big of a deal. So I'm going to just say it and say for me it was like a wee bit strange for me personally. So take it that how you will. But Hadley is 17, and her mentor guy at the antique store is about 19 or 20. We're not really told his age, but so that's the love interest. Now, it should be noted that this book is set in Kentucky. I did look it up because I was like, hang on a second, what's the legal age there? And it's 16. So, take of that how you will. I ain't touching that any more than I just did. So I did like this book. I would say there was like a few comments here and there that maybe I didn't care for. But if you're fine with like secular teen rom-commy books, like, I don't know, Casey West or something. I've read a handful of her books. I definitely would say maybe this was cleaner than that. But like compared to like Christian YA, maybe it was a little more with certain comments. I would compare it to like Jenny B. Jones's books, if you've read hers. Or even like Seeing Voices by Olivia Smith because of like the new town, new life situation. But then you also have maybe Victoria Grace the Jerkface by S.E. Clancy, which I've talked about before. They really reminded me. This book really reminded me of that book because like you've got the lovable elderly character, the cute little romance, lots of humor, maybe a little on the sarcastic side, and then a great best friend. The main character you just want to like cheer for. I don't know, that I really was reminded of that one. So if you really like Victoria Grace, you probably would really like Salvaged as well. overall, I liked this one. I would read another book by this author for sure. I just saw that she published a new one, so I'm going to be checking that one out here in the summer. And then, yeah, I liked this one. I would definitely see these characters again if possible. If possible, like if the author wrote like a companion book or anything, I think that would be fun. I really liked Hadley. I thought she was handling things that were thrown at her very well, but still was that awkward teenager, and it just worked well in my opinion. So I did really enjoy it. A few little like staring, noticing kind of things with her, with him, and that kind of thing. So like just as a heads up on that, it was a little much at times for my taste personally, but I overall enjoyed it. So there you go. Our next book is one of my most anticipated releases for 2025, and that is The Curious Inheritance of Blakely House by Joanna Davidson Politano. This one I gave 4 stars, very solid 4 stars. Our main girl is Sydney, and this is set in 1901, and it's very different from Joanna Davidson Politano's other books that she has written. I feel like it was very different. This one has a slight steampunk influence as well, which I thought was interesting. Now, even though this cover does give off maybe like a fall gothic atmosphere vibe, it is set in the spring, so you could read it now. It was really interesting, very entertaining. I really enjoyed the mystery elements of it. And so Sydney, our main character, gets a letter that she is a potential inheritor of the Blakely house. So the man that owned Blakely house was a inventor, tinker person, and very well known for his inventions. And so when Sydney gets to go, she is just like flabbergasted and floored and got stars in her eyes because she is also a tinker and inventor. And so there is a lot of peculiar things happening. So there is a lot of peculiar, I can't say that word. There is a lot of peculiar things and just events in this book and around this house, and so many different things happening, and I just overall really enjoyed it. I don't really want to tell you too much about this book. I feel like the back cover gives you just enough that you need to know. And so if you decide to read this book and you are one that likes to listen to music while you read, I highly suggest listening to Nancy Drew the Game soundtracks. I think I did the Dark Academia one here on YouTube, a couple of those while I was reading and typing up my review, and it definitely added to the book's experience in my opinion. I recently just talked about this one in my last video with the if you like this, you may like this, and so I said that this one definitely had like Nancy Drew vibes, so if you like Nancy Drew, check this one out. But then also A Lady's Guide to Marvels and Misadventures. They had similar parts, but like very different storylines, but still very interesting, where I think if you liked one, you would probably like the other. And this was just really enjoyable. I'm really glad one of my most anticipated releases was a success. It was just kind of whimsical and quirky, but in a gothic springy way, which I need more gothic springy books. That's a vibe. I want that. Thank you. And so overall, I really enjoyed this one. I don't really want to tell you too much, but I definitely got sucked into this book. I was invested. I wanted to find out all the answers, and it was really enjoyable. It potentially is my new favorite book by this author. Possibly. I would have to reread A Rumored Fortune, I think, but I did really like this one. I thought it was really good. Overall, I wish the ending would have gone a little longer. Even though it's already a decently thick book, I wish we would have had a little bit more because the epilogue wasn't enough in my opinion. But other than that, I did really enjoy it. Also, there was like no major content concerns on this book. I would suggest like 15, 16 plus because it puts your brain through a brain test at times, but it was very clean, so that was really nice. Alright, and that is the end of the Christian fiction section. Now we go into clean fiction, and I unfortunately am going to have a very unpopular opinion. Heart of Red, Blood of Blue by Rebecca Belliston. I have so many friends who love this book. I think I am literally the only one on BookTube that did not like this book, and I am so sorry to all my friends who love this book. I don't think we really expected me to like it though. Really, like if you've read this book, I think this is not a shock that I did not care for it because it's pretty violent. So our main character has albinism, and basically, so that means she has like no pigmentation in her skin or her eyes. So she's very pale, she's got white hair, her eyelashes are even white. And so everyone views that as having a curse and like the curse of Satan, so it's always been hidden. Well, they are in a war, things have happened in the past, and she was supposed to be engaged to this one prince to this other country, and well, that didn't work out, and he ended up dead. So now she's been in hiding because the queen of the other country, the mother of the young prince, has vowed basically to kill her. And so she's been in hiding, and then it comes up where she is the only surviving one out of her siblings. Now all the other ones have been killed. And so the main girl's been through it, okay? The main girl's been through it. I feel for her. I feel so bad. At the same time, I would have been poisoning everyone in this book. Like, everybody was like terrible. Truly, honestly terrible. If I was in her shoes, And so different things happen. Her father has her come out of hiding and plans to marry her off to a 40-year-old king from another country who is a disgusting pig. And that's an insult to pigs. He's disgusting. He added in a lot of crudeness to the book. I was so ready for him to be gone, stabbed, dead. I didn't really care at this point. Like, let's just get away from him. Because he didn't care for him. Like, he's disgusting. He was disgusting. He made comments. He did things. And so we have that element that I really didn't care for. We also have how badly she is treated because of her condition. Did not care for that. We also have hanging bodies, dead bodies, headless bodies everywhere. Didn't care for that. It's very violent. It was very brutal. As a personal note, though, we also have the main girl, Gisela, grieving her siblings and the what-ifs. And that was just really hard as someone who has lost a sister. That is just really hard. So that was just hard for me to read about in that general. So, like, this book, honestly, I was so mad. I was so mad with this book and the beginning part of it because of the pig, because of how she's treated, the violence everywhere. I was going to give it a 2, but then I was like, no, I had too many negative emotions about this book to give it a 2. It is a 1 star. So, I don't know. I think the author did really well with some elements of, like, the fantasy setting, but at the same time, it was kind of weird because, like, some people would speak a fictional fantasy language, and then some people are speaking French. I'm like, okay. And then you've got, like, fictional countries, but then there's a mention of, like, Africa and the Nile River, and I'm like, what? And then you have the mention of the Pope, and I was like, what? I was very confused by that concept as well. Like, I don't know. I'm definitely in the minority of this book. Did not care for it. If you know you have a higher threshold than me with, like, sexual suggestive content and violence and blood and all that, then you might like this book. You could try it. I did not care for it. A lot of the content just ruined the book for me, which is unfortunate. It's unfortunate. So, on my review, I just want to give a note. I did a review on Goodreads. I totally, like, way went past my character limit on Goodreads, so I had to cut a lot of, like, the more minor things. So, like, things I would typically note in my review are not there, but all of, like, the major things are, and then I was unable to mark the spoilers for the review because of the character limits. I have never have I ever surpassed the character limit that bad. Like, I think the limit on Goodreads is like 15,000 characters. I was like at 26. So I had to cut some things and listening. So, like, just as a note on that, if you check out my review, I was unable to mark spoilers, like, with the whole, like, hidden tag thing that Goodreads has. So, yeah, that was that book. I'm sorry for my friends that really like this book. I can understand, like, the concept of it, yes, but for me, it was just too much in different ways. So, that was an unfortunate miss. I recently read Stalks of Gold by Celeste Baxendell. This is book 1 in her Bewitching Fairytales series, and this was a mashup between Rumpelstiltskin and Rapunzel. And so I read 2 other books by her that I really liked. That was Ties of Starlight and The Wicked Prince. I really, really liked those 2. So I want to read her Fairytale retelling series, but this one was kind of a miss, and I gave it 2 stars. I think mainly for me, it was just I didn't like the main characters. They were all very emotional and high-strung, the main couple. And to be fair, yes, she's been put through the ringer, as many of main characters have, but she has been captured by the king to spin gold for him, and she can't do that, obviously. And so here comes in this magical dude that comes and offers her help and manipulates her into... can I say for spoilers? Basically, he isn't what he all seems, and he definitely manipulates her and pits her against the main guy, Sander. And Sander's like, where is all this hatred coming from? And then there's other different details with that, but they just honestly were kind of unstable. All of them. All of them. Didn't really care for them in general. I wanted to hand everyone some vitamin B to get their emotions under control because they all needed it desperately, because they're lashing out. They're mainly her. She was really lashing out at the guy. But then the guy also, like, he had two modes. It was, oh, the main girl. And then it was like, I'm going to kill the king. Like, there was no middle ground. And so he was just kind of annoying. He was there. He was annoying. He is the illegitimate son of the former king. And so he is called the literal word for that, the boy B word, if you will, multiple times. I think like 18 times. And that's a word I do not want falling out of my mouth, because yes, that is a literal word in history, but nowadays it has a different notion to it. And I don't really want that falling out of my mouth. Thank you. So just reading it like 18 times was a bit much. And I don't know. I didn't really care for the main couple. I didn't like the characters. I will continue on with the series and I hope it's better. But I was really bummed I didn't like this one as much. The main guy, yeah, he was a problem. And then you've got the obsessive stalker guy following her and kidnapping her and just causing problems. There was also mentions of witches and their familiars, and I just didn't really care for that. I was uncomfortable with it. And then also there is like a witch that is trying to be good, but she's still called a witch. So it was kind of like not fully making sense in that sense. So yeah, it was messy. It was all messy. The Masked Baron by Anneka R. Walker, I think is how we pronounce this author's name. I gave this one 3 stars. I listened to this one partially as an audiobook and then I read the rest of it. I have had my eye on this trilogy for a long while. They are Regency Fairytale retellings. I need more of those in my life. We've discussed that. It was a really interesting take on Beauty and the Beast, but I'm not sure if I hyped it up so much in my brain, or maybe I'm just tired of the Beauty and the Beast retelling story, but it didn't meet my expectations, which was unfortunate. Our main character is, of course, the Belle character, and she is trying to stay away from the Gaston character, so much so that her father then takes her to the Beast so the Beast can protect her. So that was an interesting little twist on the story. I just didn't really care for this one, unfortunately. I'm going to read the rest of the series eventually because I have higher hopes for those. I don't really like the Beauty and the Beast storyline to begin with. The main girl was very stubborn, and then the main guy, when he got angry, he was terrifying. Not only to her, but to me as well. So you have that. Now, this is non-magical, so like that was an interesting element of this, and it's like, what is really happening? She kind of, though, had Stockholm syndrome, if you will, because she is like stuck with this guy, and she's basically become his ward, so that when he dies, everything he has is going to go to her. And so he wants her to like get a husband, and like he's gonna help with that and all of that kind of thing. And so of course that's not how it works out. They start falling for each other, and he had his moments of like temper, anger, and I was just like, whoa buddy, hold it, somebody get some ice water and douse him or something, because that wasn't good. It was interesting though, because like our main guy is like on a vengeance for something that happened to his family, and this one did have some faith content, but it felt more to me like it was the proper thing for the time period. It wasn't a personal relationship with Christ for the main characters, because our main guy is very much consumed with getting justice and revenge on the witch, who is not really a witch, obviously. And there's not a single talk about like, hey, you know, let's let the Lord handle that. Let's let go and let God kind of thing. Not a single mention of that. So I thought that was kind of weird. And then at one point he's like so worked up that he tries to read scriptures before bed, and not even that was able to put him to sleep, and that kind of felt disrespectful, you know? Like I was like, did we really need to have that? I don't think we needed to have that. So there was that. Overall, the book wasn't bad. I just had higher expectations of it. I'll read the rest of the series at some point. It was fine. It was fine, I guess. If you really like Beauty and the Beast and you want like a non-magical Regency fairy tale retelling, you might check it out. But I don't know. It doesn't look like it's going to be connecting to the other books in the series based off of like the back covers of those books. I don't recognize any of those names after finishing this one, so you know. It was fine. It was fine. Just finished yesterday was The Realm Beneath, which is a short story collection of like mermaids and selkies and other creatures of the deep. And so in that short story collection there are short stories by Allison Tebo, who put it all together, and she was one of the ones I really wanted to read because I've enjoyed her other books. And then also by Danielle Buellen, Anna Christine, Emily Golis, Olivia Greathouse, Hannah Kay, and Jane Maury. I'm so sorry, I probably did not pronounce everyone's name right. But out of this collection, I'd only read books by Anna Christine and Allison Tebo before, so those were the ones I was most interested in, and it was definitely my favorite two of them. I just thought they were so fun, and I just really like those authors' writing styles. The other ones, like I had some I gave 3, one I gave 3.5, one I gave 2. They were all just kind of fine. I was expecting this book to have more mermaids, but it was, you know, as the subtitle says, stories of mermaids, selkies, and other creatures of the deep. So I should have paid attention to that. But overall, I did like it. I gave it like a 3 stars, but I think if I averaged it out and did math, it would be like a 3.25. There's 7 books in here, so yeah, overall I liked it. Some of them I gave 4. I had a 3.5, I had a few 3s, I gave one a 2. They were different. Some of them felt like they would have been better as like a prequel maybe to a story, but overall I enjoyed this. I guess you could say I would probably get a physical copy. Anna Christine's was my favorite, and then Allison Tebo's, and then I was surprised by different ones I enjoyed as well. Overall, enjoyable, fun. I listened to the audiobook for the last half, for like I think the final 3 or 4, and the narrator did really well as well, so that was nice. Sarah Beran is one of my favorite fairy tale retelling authors, and she released a new one here in April, and that was Snapdragon, which is a mashup between Thumbelina and what's that Greek guy? Hades and his girl. Persephone? That's not it. You know who I mean, right? I don't know. So I'm not familiar with Greek mythology, if that didn't just give that away right there. So I was very excited for this one though, regardless of that, because it's Sarah Beran and I've really enjoyed her books. I did end up giving it about 3.5 stars. Did overall like it. I'd be curious to get the special hardcover edition and read the bonus content, and maybe I would like it a little bit more. I didn't quite understand all the magic content, but overall it was cute. But our main girl is Percy, and she lives with her mom in a very quiet village, and she just wants to run their flower shop. But then one day she ends up in the realm of the fairyland, and it's dying. It's a dying realm, and so she is apparently connected in ways she didn't understand. And then our male love interest lead is the current king of that realm, and he is going blind because of problems in the fairy realm. I think that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to give too many spoilers, and I don't remember what the back cover says. So we're just going to put it there. Overall, I liked it well enough. It was pretty cute and springy. So, yeah. So after reading The Curious Inheritance of Blakely House, I was in a Nancy Drew mood. I wanted mysteries. So I actually found here on YouTube the channel Penelope Heaven, and I will tag her down below so y'all can check it out. But she has audiobooks of a bunch of the Nancy Drew books, and I had so much fun re-listening to these. So these are the really pretty editions. They did, I don't remember when they did them, like 10 years ago probably now, and they never continued. They only did to books 8. Why? Why? Because they're so pretty. I just, look at this. Obviously, I grew up on the flashlight version, and I've slowly been trying to rebuild my collection of those, but these are so pretty. They are so pretty. I want to do them. So it was just fun to reread them. I rounded them to a 4 on Goodreads for nostalgic rating, but they're more like a 3.5 for me. I don't know. The narrator of the audiobooks here on YouTube just did so lovely with them, and like, I can't wait to listen to more of them as I do it. I've been listening to them like when I do like cooking and like cleaning up the kitchen or laundry and that kind of thing, and it just makes the task so fun. How she does Nancy Drew just felt so Barbie-like to me in like the best way. So I greatly enjoyed re-listening to these. Maybe I'll be able to get through more of them, because I think I, as a preteen, only read up to 40 something. I never made it all the way to 56. So maybe I will. We'll find out. I then read 2 books in the same series, and I liked the first one better, but I'm going to talk about them in number order instead of rating because they are connected in a way, and that is Shard of Glass by Emily Deddy is the first book, and this is a Cinderella retelling. I like a good Cinderella retelling. I actually really like this one. I gave it 4 stars. So our main girl is Ashlyn in this one, and because of her awful stepfamily, she gets a job at the palace cleaning the floors, and so she ends up meeting one of the princes and all that kind of things, and like, yay, Cinderella, love Cinderella. But the stepmother in this book, y'all, drove me insane. Like, I was like, I'm not an MMA fighter, but she's making me want to be one. Like, oh, she was terrible. I just kept having the meme of Popeye going, because she was terrible. Let me just tell y'all, she was horrible. But other than that, it was very cute, very sweet, very delightful. Really enjoyed it. Our main guy was Ornick. I don't know how to say his name. Onric. I don't know how to say that. So he was a very overeager prince, but he had his insecurities because like his older brother, the crown prince, is like pretty perfect. So that's hard. But I just really liked his personality elsewise and just his protectiveness around her. And yes, he perhaps fell very shortly after meeting her, but they were cute. So I don't really care. It was cute. I did feel like I was missing some things with like the magic system and like maybe that wasn't fully explained well, but I wasn't really there for the magic fantasy elements. I was there to see the stepmother get some comeuppance and just to see a cute Cinderella retelling. So it was fine. So with that, I stayed up way too late, but then I picked up the second book, and that was Thorn of Rose. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Okay, we're learning I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it, perhaps. She was a little, how can I explain this book? This was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and as we've learned, not really my thing, so I gave this one 3 stars. By the end, I was smiling, though, so like I guess it was good enough. I suppose. It was different though because our main girl, instead of her being trapped at the Beast's place, the Beast was trapped at her place with her servants. So that was an interesting twist that turned the classic fairy tale on its head a little bit. And so the main thing I think I had a problem with, besides like, you know, the Beauty and the Beast elements at times, was the main girl was kind of a brat. She had a chip on her shoulder and was pretty rude, and I didn't think the Beast guy really deserved that. He was decently fine enough. She was just very dramatic, so I didn't necessarily care for how she treated him, but it eventually got better. It took like 64% of the book, but then it was good. It was a little bit of a 180 quick change, but I really didn't care because I needed her to get better because she was making the book worse for me. Yeah, overall I liked these 2 so far. I haven't continued with the series yet. I wanted a break. I think I was like getting a little burnt out. So maybe I will pick the next 2 books up in, what's the next month? May. Maybe I will pick them up in May. We will see. I liked the first one definitely better. The second one was okay-ish. I gave it 3. It was fine. Now we have A Fated Quest by Selena R. Gonzalez. This is book 3 in the Mariveld Chronicles, perhaps. And so we have the pretty hardback. So lovely. So nice. So the first book in the series is A Thieving Curse, which I really enjoyed, and then the little companion novella, The Dragon Prince's Heart, really enjoyed that one as well. Book 2 was A Lonely Dance, and I had difficulties with that one at times because of who the main guy was in that one. I was really excited for this one though because book 1, this is her brother who we see pretty heavily in that first book, so I was so excited for his story and to read it. And I have to say, I was very impressed once again by this author's writing style and how she has just done a interesting fantasy world and like all the cultural elements, but then also just how the characters and the character growth. So in this book, it's very obvious to Gareth what is right and what is wrong. But what if things aren't always crystal clear and it's a possible gray area? And so there is a lot of wrestling with that, and there's a lot of like moral dilemmas by the end of the book, and I love a good moral dilemma. I love seeing a character wrestle and try to figure out what they believe in about something, and I think that's really interesting. This author's writing style is just really good for that as well. So our main guy is Gareth, and he longs to be a knight and escape the compromise and cowardice of the royal courts, especially his father, who seems to care more about his crown than his children. After defying the king one too many times, Gareth is granted a wish and sent to serve as a knight, but guarding a quiet border castle is tedious compared to his favorite legends. When the prized firebird goes missing on Gareth's watch, he eagerly volunteers to recover it. And then basically Gareth goes into the other kingdom because of trying to hunt down the missing firebird, and gets trapped by a witch and her motives that are not clear. And like there's confusing prophecies, but then he also meets our main girl. And because of our main girl wanting to be a knight and is like all like muscular and buff, it cracked me up that Gareth notices her muscles as opposed to like the girl always noticing the guy's muscles, which I don't really care for, but it just made me laugh in this instance because, you know, that's not typically how it is. And he was just like such a little eager puppy around her to impress her, and like he was just cute. Gareth, he was cute. There was like a lot of politics and like political debates and like lore, if you would, for this world, and I just thought it was very interesting, so it made me pay attention very well. Honestly, it was good. I'm really excited to read the 4th book because it is a character we meet in this book that has hidden motives, and I'm very curious to see what now becomes of her. Really liked this one though. I would say it's more maybe older teens, maybe like 16, 17 plus, or even like new adults, if you will. I really liked this one though in a lot of different ways. I also really liked just that our main girl was like a tough girl boss, but she wasn't like one of those girl bosses that will not listen to anyone or like thinks men are the enemy. She wasn't that way, which I am so appreciative of. It was such a good balance that she knew she was strong, but she also knew when she needed help, and that was just so refreshing. That was lovely and refreshing to see. They just worked so well together. And then you've got the talking fox Leo. It was good. How that all worked out, it was very good. Cannot wait to read book 4, because book 4 is about a character we meet in this book, and we also get her POV. And I'm so glad we got her POV, because elsewise I think I wouldn't have been excited for book 4, but I'm going to read book 4 soon. Once Upon an Apple by Gabrielle Landy, I gave 4 stars. A little romance heavy for my taste at times, but overall very cute. It is a clean fiction fairy tale retelling. No magic in this book, but it does seem like the rest of the series will have magic, so just as a heads up for that. I didn't mean to binge read this book, but I totally did in one morning because I was just like, this is adorable. It definitely had like that classic Barbie movie feel, and I'm always here for that because I like the Barbie movies, as we've discussed in my prior video. But our main girl is running from her past and ends up becoming the caretaker to 7 goats. It is a Snow White retelling, and it was just really fun. The main couple were really cute. Perhaps it was insta-love and they fell for each other very quickly, but honestly it just added to the cuteness of the book. If we were going to compare like romance content, I would say it was a bit more than, say, Melanie Sellier's fairy tale retellings, but not by a ton. I would still say probably like 16 plus maybe. I don't know. It's hard to gauge. Every girl's different, you know. I thought it was really fun overall, very cute with the romance, but then there's like a lot of sibling banter and just overall happy sibling content, which I love seeing. I just love seeing that in books. I found myself grinning like a ninny at the end of the book, and it was just really cute. I can't wait to read the rest of the series, and I backed the author's Kickstarter. I splurged. Oh, I splurged, y'all, and I bought the really pretty editions of this book. So I hope I like the rest of the series. This one was really cute. Our main girl, Sophia, was Snow White, and she was just a great Snow White character because she's very like sweet and innocent, but is also able to tease her friends and stand up for herself. she was just a great character overall, and it was pretty cute. So I did really like that one. Another book I decided to binge read, and I'm so glad I did because I really enjoyed it, was Suit and Slipper by Kate Stradling. So I gave this one 4.5 stars. Another book I read by Kate Stradling, I gave 4.5 stars. This is telling me I need to hurry up and get with reading the rest of her books because this was good. This is a Cinderella retelling, if you could not tell from the title, and our main girl is Eugenie. I think that is how we say her name. It's really cute looking. And so she is, you know, Cinderella, stepmother, stepsisters, not great situation. And then a mischievous fairy enters in and has other plans. So it was cute. We have the hidden identity. We have the secret identity. I like those tropes. I really like Cinderella because of those tropes. Interesting enough about this book is it starts when most Cinderella retellings would be like half over. Because it starts with Eugenie, our main Cinderella character, when she is sending her stepmother and her stepsisters to the ball, like right before. I thought that was different. There is then another ball, and then there was going to be a third ball, but things happened. So I really liked it. Honestly, I thought it was really cute. The twist in the story might be an obvious one to times, but I found the whole book to be very delightful. It's a short story. It's a bit over 100 pages. I will be getting a physical copy of because honestly, I was squealing in delights. It had all my favorite parts of Cinderella. So I liked it. I thought it was cute. And then my last book for this video today would be A Flash of Magic by Allison Tebo. I gave this one 4.5 stars. This is technically book 4 in the Tales of Ambia series. It is a short story novella collection bind-up. And oh my goodness, if you have read The Reluctant Godfather and A Royal Masquerade, and then the third book is Poppy's Peril, if you have read those, read this one. Read it, read it, read it, read it. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. It was so fun. I just love this world and how the author has created it and all the little details of it. It's just so amusing and just so fun and delightful. And this one just added to the world so much. And I loved how we had a note from the author at the beginning of each little special, like a letter from Ella, a letter from Cynthia, an expert from the Journal of a Fairy, and then we've got, like, let's see, an interview with Burndy. It's great. And then a letter from somebody, a letter from Princess Poppy, and then there's like a little short story at the end. When I tell y'all, I was crying from laughing so hard at different parts in this book. It was so much fun. I'm so sad it's over. Like, it's one of those ones I finish, I want to instantly start rereading because it was so much fun. It was just so much fun. I laughed so hard. It was just so adorable and enjoyable, and I just love these characters. I really do. They're just so fun. They're like the classic Disney characters, like in the old animated movies. They're just so much fun. I think this series is so much fun. It's good. I would love, okay, here's what, this is a little side note. I would love a like special hardback edition of all like the prior 3 books and this one in one. I would love that. Just as an idea. I would love that. I just want more books in this series in general, but it was really good. I really enjoyed it. If you have read the prior books, you definitely need to read this one. It's really good. So there we go. Those are the books I read in April. You know, some of those were duds, some were mediocre, but then I also had some really good books. So that's fair. I'll take it. So here is my stack of physical books. I'm not sure if I'm keeping Protector or not. I'm going to read the second book and then figure that out. But elsewise, I'm keeping everybody else, and I've got a few books I'll probably get copies of, like Suit and Slipper for sure, and then I'm not sure about the Emily Deddy series yet. I'm going to read the other 2 books and then figure out if I want to get physical copies. But ta-da! A pretty good recent reads, I think. So that is it for this video. I would love to know if you've read any of these. If we have different opinions, that's okay. That's okay. I totally understand I'm in the minority about a certain book. But I would love to know if you have any of the same opinions as me with some of these books. And I will see you next time. I'd love to know if you've read any of these. Do you want to read any of them? You know, yes, I had some duds. I had mediocre ones. But I'm really satisfied by the amount of 4 stars I had in this video. And even just rereading the Nancy Drew books, that was fun. I'm gonna have to continue doing that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see y'all next time. I am Lindsay from the blog booksforchristiangirls.blogspot.com, where there's a new review every Wednesday and Friday. I try to post a new video on this channel every Friday as well. And then I'm also on Instagram under Books for Christian Girls and Book Reviews by Lindsay. And I'm on TikTok, Goodreads, Facebook, all the many social media sites to talk about books here, there, and everywhere. I hope you have an absolutely lovely rest of your day. Bye, y'all!